Nobody does. Nobody does. You have no.
Hey guys, I'm back and I am so ready for spring. I don't know about you. So I wanted to paint something colorful this week. We're going to do this butterfly in watercolor and colored pencil. If you'd like to paint along with me, I used mostly Winsor & Newton watercolor in Winsor Yellow, Winsor Orange, Sepia, Payne's Gray, Cerulean Blue, and then Van Gogh brand in Burnt Sienna and Azo Yellow, which is a very golden yellow. And in colored pencil, I used Caran d'Ache Pablos. The colors were Fast Orange, White, Turquoise Blue, Blue Jeans, and then in Luminance, I believe that's pronounced cornaline, not sure, Orange, Burnt Ochre, and then for Prismacolors, I used Cream, Black, and Chocolate. And finally, I used a Posca paint pen in white, the extra fine tip. This came in really handy for those little white spots. Okay, let's get going. I'm going to start with the yellow of the wings, and to do that I'm going to use a wet into wet technique. So I'm going to start by laying down just some clean water, and then I will come back through with light washes of Winsor Yellow, and that will start to spread and give me some nice soft gradation of color. I'm paying close attention to my reference photo, so I'm building light to dark here, starting very, very light, and sections where I see more golden tones or even orangey tones, I'm adding a little bit of Winsor Yellow and Azo Yellow to the mix. So just continuing to tap in that color as long as I can for this first layer. Now I'm noticing in my reference photo that the bottom wings are a bit more yellow and the top wings are a bit more orange. So you'll see me starting to add a second layer into the top and make those a bit more saturated and start bringing out those more golden and more orange tones. But as I'm going through this process, I'm just continuing to let these layers dry and build up more. It creates a very beautiful, almost stained glass effect when the light filters through those layers of transparent paint and then bounces back off the white of the paper. It's a very beautiful technique. And here I'm just taking a very light wash of burnt sienna mixed with sepia to tone it down a little bit and just going over my pencil lines to preserve them. And this is something that I do in all of my paintings, but in this one, I wanted a much softer, more delicate line. So for the darkest sections of the tips of the wings, I'm starting with that same wash of sepia and burnt sienna because the black that I see is actually very warm and it does transition into brown in many places. So I wanted to put that down as a base layer. And you'll see a bit later on, I've covered up at least one of those little white spots, but that's an easy fix. I can come back through, which I will show you here in just a minute. Just continuing to block in the darkest areas there. Now for the body of the butterfly, I've added more sepia. This is a much thicker, less watery mix, much more like ink, and I'm starting to really define all of those little spots and start to sketch in some of the little highlight areas as well. For the lightest parts, I will come through with some cerulean blue, very, very light wash, and a little bit of that Azo Yellow. Again, very diluted. Continuing to block in those darker areas with that mix of sepia and burnt sienna, and sketching in some details into the body here. Just building up more layers. There's a lot of little tiny indications of shape and of texture, so I'm trying to get those in. Continuing to block in. Now that that has dried, I'm onto the second layer, which I've added quite a bit of Payne's Gray to. It gets quite dark. And I've noticed here where I had painted over one of the little dots, so I've not covered that in the second layer and kind of marked out where it will be so that I can come back through and fix that. Just a little bit more of the yellows, watching my reference photo for the more orangey tones and where those should go. And now I'm going to fix that little spot. Posca paint pen works wonders. I'm sketching in a little bit of burnt sienna here and a dry brush, adding more of that dark mixture to the tip of the wings. More burnt sienna to the veins and to the edges where the dark color transitions into the yellow. Adding some more burnt sienna. Building up some more washes. I'm using wet into wet again. It's very important that these layers dry completely in between. Adding a little bit of indication for where these spots will go in the two lower wings. And same thing on this side, a little more burnt sienna, and working in that second layer of the Payne's Gray and the sepia to mark out where the black areas will be. I'm being careful about these dots, but again, I'm not worried too much about it. I want to save kind of the indication of where they are, but in the end I'll use the Posca paint pen to clean those up, so I'm not stressing too much. Some more wet into wet with that burnt sienna. Gives me a nice orangey tone, working a little bit into the lower wings. Now I'm dry brushing in more of the darkest colors into the body of the butterfly. This is one instance where digital references are wonderful. I could really zoom in at the photos and see what just the little intricate sections of the body looked like. I'm mostly dry brushing those little areas in. A bit more definition to the vein. More shading. Again, that's just burnt sienna. A little bit of Winsor orange where it needs to be a bit brighter, a little less brown. And this is just a layering process, just continuing to build everything up. I'm being careful to create kind of a little feathered edge and add even just some tiny little dots where the yellow meets the black. Now I'm showing you how I'm using wet into wet to add those spots. Took a little bit of finesse to soften the edges, get those in. Just adding more water around the edges softly, controlling it with a dry brush as well. bit more texture to the center, trying to get that rounded shape. And here comes the Posca paint pen to the rescue. Now I'm going to switch to colored pencil just to finish this up, clean it up a little bit. Using the Pablo, that's the fast orange there that you see. It's like a goldenrod color. That is the burnt ochre. Really just cleaning up all the little edges. Here I'm using turquoise. Turquoise is a wonderful color to add some shine with. That's a great kind of trick or tip. Lightening up just a couple little sections with the cream. A few more touches here and there. Okay, that's the final painting. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I would love it if you would share this video. You can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook if you're interested in what I'm up to, what I'm working on currently. And thank you guys so much. I will see you next week. Bye!